Buonasera, hello world, greetings from the global village. Monday night webinars, number 9 tonight. I can't believe we made it already, 9-8 plus today. A special series to understand who we are, what matters to us in response to this state of isolation. And so we are live on the Marshall Mcluhan's Facebook group and on the Mcluhan Institute YouTube channel. So let me first of all say hi to a few folks from internet, so from Facebook and YouTube. So feel free to send your cheers to kick off the Monday night webinar tonight. As usual, we have a lineup of special guests in a friendly, welcoming, inclusive, and engaging setup. We will be discussing, we will be sharing really how to undertake this particular moment, how we can, again, share our feelings. And so, great, I see you are connecting. Andrew Mcluhan, as usual. Andrew, thank you for hosting the Monday night webinars on the Mcluhan Institute YouTube channel. Thank you, Alex. I see Alex Kuskis, the Mcluhan Galaxy blog, all about Mcluhan, the repository, the internet Bible for the Mcluhan's scholarship. So thank you, Alex, for supporting the series of Monday night seminars and webinars, actually. And so Dan Brown, hello Dan. Ray from Vienna, not Austria, Vienna, United States. And then from Bernadette, hello. Naive from, right here. Alfonso from Cleveland, Elaine from New Jersey. And by the way, Elaine will be with us next week, I think. And so it's, again, I told you, it's number 9. So 9th Monday night webinar tonight. We have 2 more till July the 6th. Then there will be a break on July 13 in order to come back on July the 20th, save the date. On July the 20th, there will be the unique first ever Global Village Day, July the 20th, 12-hour Mcluhan-esque marathon exploring the post-pandemic world. So from noon to midnight, all across the world, there will be speakers, participants from Japan, China, Russia, Europe, of course, and North America, South America. So it will be a one-day celebration from noon to midnight Toronto time, to celebrate the legacy of Marshall Mcluhan, to celebrate the Global Village Day, July the 20th, because at midnight, just crossing to July the 21st, finally, we will celebrate and cheer to the Marshall Mcluhan's birthday, which is July the 21st. So that's why, again, save the date. We really look forward to seeing you on Facebook and YouTube. July the 20th, Global Village Day, a 12-hour Mcluhan-esque marathon from noon to midnight to explore the post-pandemic world. And check it out. Check the lineup of speakers on the globalvillageday.ca, and you will find what we are cooking together. And by the way, there will be a few surprises, so I'll tell more tonight and next Monday night seminar webinars in order to engage you and foster participation. So it will be again a world celebration of the Marshall Mcluhan's vibrant spirit, and again, so it's a good opportunity for gathering as a community and foster that sense of togetherness, right? So that we are exploring in these Monday night webinars. In the meantime, I like to say hi to Ria Beaumont from Toronto, And Andrew again, live from the Mcluhan Institute, of course. Johnny, one of my students, media studies, U of T. Hello, John. I miss you a lot. I miss our conversations, but we are keeping in touch, right? So thank you for being with us, John. Salvatore Falica, and then from Queens, New York. As you can see, you can both comment from both from YouTube and Facebook. So feel free to say hi. However, if you are on the Facebook group, please be reminded that in order to show up your name and face profile, you have to authorize StreamYard to grab your name and profile. It's very easy. So just visit streamyard.com/Facebook. So if you are on Facebook group and following this live stream, just go on streamyard.com/Facebook. That will make you show up as your name and profile. Otherwise, you will look like an anonymous gray entity of the global village. We want to see real people. We are real people. There are real humans behind all this. All right. So please be reminded to show your name and profile on the comments. Visit streamyard.com/Facebook. All right. Great. Okay. We have, I told you, as usual, a lineup of speaker. I usually start warming up and waiting for you to connect, actually. So let me say hi to all folks on Facebook and YouTube before introducing our special guests. And I think that today I'm going to slightly change our presentation format. So I will introduce all of them, all of our special guests, all together at the beginning, and then one by one, one at once, we'll one at a time, we will have a chance to chat together. And so Alex was reminded, Alex, you hosted a great MEA convention. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't only drop and so on. Yes, we will talk about what happened on Zoom, on our virtual platform. There are many folks in this community of the media ecology, actually scholarly community. And yeah, we are very excited because for the first time ever, the Media Ecology Association hosted its annual convention online as a virtual convention. But I don't like to say virtual because it was a real convention, real people, real conversation, real dialogues. It was a great opportunity for exploring new ways of sharing and spreading and creating knowledge dissemination. And yeah, we learned a lot. So hopefully later tonight, some of our special guests will be able to share what happened over the past few days virtually on Zoom and symbolically at Adelphi University in New York. From Rio, Wilson, I like your gifts. It's a gifts magician. So thank you, Wilson, for sharing your creative exercises. I look forward to see your gift tonight as well. Thank you. And Bernadette, looking forward to seeing other panels videos I couldn't make it. Yes, because, by the way, I think for those who registered, all convention panels and sessions, plenaries, everything has been recorded, and it will be available, I think, in a few days or hours on the Media Ecology Association website. So it's nice that we could keep everything as a recording in order to better share and better make up on those panels that we couldn't make it. Yes. All right. Thank you, Bernadette, for reminding. It was great. Okay. 8:10. I think it's time to start introducing our special guests for tonight. And by the way, I didn't say hi. By the way, the first to be introduced is my alter ego over there. Hello, hello, hello. And that's another symbolical move. So we wanted to, because we want to explore, we like to explore different perspectives. So that's a different camera, even called the Foucault camera. Or by the way, so it's nice to see things from different perspectives. All right, time to get started. And today, again, I'm going to change my presentation format. I'm going to briefly, one by one, introduce all our special guests for tonight, rather than waiting one at a time. And so let me just follow the order prepared by Alex Koskis on the Mcluhan Galaxy blog. And so let me start by welcoming to the Monday night webinar. Surprise, because my guests don't know who is going to be the first one. And so the first one will be Julia. Hey, oh, where are you? Julia, here you are. Hello, Julia.
Hello, Paolo. How lucky.
Julia Hildebrand. So welcome on board. And now, second on the Mcluhan Monday night webinars. Mike Plugh.
Surprise.
Big surprise.
How are you, Paolo?
Thank you. Yes, I'm here.
Great, I'm glad.
It's me. All right, and I like your background. Maybe we can speak a few words later. All right, third guest for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Anton. Hello, Corey.
Hey, Paolo, how you doing?
I'm great. It's nice to spend every Monday night a couple of hours together with the community I love, and it's very nice to have you tonight as well.
That's great. It's great to be here.
All right, we will continue discussing. And our fourth special guest for tonight, Luigi Ferrara from Toronto. Hello, Luigi.
Hi, Paolo.
Okay, I can hear. Great. Hello. I was just a little worried. I couldn't see your answer. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. We will talk more about your relationship, intellectual relationship to Marshall McLuhan, and what you are cooking on within and beyond the Marshall McLuhan's legacy. So I'm very happy that you can share what you are doing on the McLuhan's legacy, and in general your feeling, your response to the current state of emergent isolation, but also hope for a better future. So I'll be back to you, Luigi, for an in-depth discussion. Okay. Thank you. All right. And again, my dear friends, let me just say a few hi to our folks on Facebook and YouTube. This is Angie, hello everybody. Long time no see in the space of the internet. The Zoom MEA 2020, as Lance called it. Yes. So it was great. And we have a few other... we have a few friends coming. So feel free to say hi in the chat. Feel free to comment. Feel free to share your thoughts. As usual, our folks are very, very keen to play with words, making puns, playing with everything we discuss. So it's nice that you can express your creativity. Okay, so unleash your creativity. This is the right place for sharing any kind of creative insight. Okay, so now you know who are our guests tonight, and I will bring back Julia. Hello, Julia. Here you are. Let me say a few words about you, because again, so it's very informal, a relaxed conversation, but it's important to acknowledge who our guests are. And thanks to Alex Koskis, I have a bio. I think hopefully it is updated, Julia. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think I won't read it entirely. It's too long. Anyway, so Julia Hildebrand. I like this last name. I'll tell you why. Julia Hildebrand is an assistant professor of communication at Eckerd College in Florida. Her research focuses on critical media studies and mobilities research with a special interest in mobile technologies, visual communication, and human-machine interactions. Among many other publications, let me say that I want to point out that Julia is a multi-awards winner for best paper, best scholar, best everything, and also she is a member of the board, one of the board members of the Media Ecology Association. And let me point out that she's also, I think, one of the youngest and a source of energy, enthusiasm, and creativity in our media ecology organization. So it's very important. I'm very grateful as the president of the Media Ecology Association. I'm very grateful to Julia for bringing that kind of enthusiasm and new ideas that really we appreciate so much. So, Julia, welcome again in this Monday night webinar. How are you? Where are you right now? Exactly. I mean, where are you?
Well, first of all, Paolo, thank you so much for this kind introduction. I'm joining you all from St. Petersburg, Florida, which is in the Tampa Bay area. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing fine. My brain is very much in a post-convention mode, still trying to process all the insightful conversations and talks that we've experienced at the MEA convention over the past couple of days. And of course, tying up loose ends here and there, following up on emails, and but yeah, still processing, making sense of everything, and of course getting ready to do more online teaching over the summer and doing more research.
All right. So are you going to teach over the summer?
Yes, today is my first day of summer teaching Media and Society.
Oh, wow.
Maybe some of my students are joining on YouTube. If you are,
sure.
Hi.
Hello, Julia students. Hello. One extra point if you comment. One extra point if you make a clever comment on the chat.
Nice idea. Yes.
Just a couple of questions, Julia, very briefly, but two more very important questions. What is the coffee with a media ecologist?
Excellent point. Yes. So this is a new program that we started just last October. And the idea was to bring key thinkers in media ecology in contact with people that are just interested in media ecology more generally. And of course, that includes Marshall McLuhan's work. So if you go to our website, mediaecology.org, you find a tab that's called Virtual Coffee with a Media Ecologist. And there we have a list of volunteers who are key thinkers in our fields that are available for a coffee. So a virtual chat, a phone call, anything along the lines. And if you have questions about key probes, ideas, the history of media ecology, or if you're an instructor, professor, and would like to invite a media ecologist to your classroom, to your virtual classroom, then get in touch with us. There's a form. All the contact forms go straight to me, and I'll try to connect you. And I think this is a wonderful program to connect the older generation with the younger generation, to foster international connections and give the field more visibility and have us be approachable.
Great. And you see, folks, when I was speaking about energy, enthusiasm, and great creativity from Julia, you see why. That was one of the many great ideas brought by Julia and many others. So to make our community stronger. And so, thank you. And more creative, by the way. Well, second question. Your first encounter meeting with Marshall McLuhan. I mean, of course, virtual meeting. So when did you met Marshall McLuhan in your career?
I love this question. So I got
And
my.
by the way, it was not prepared, so it's
No.
just an impromptu question. So I don't know why I came up with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so interesting. So I'm originally from Germany, from Regensburg near Munich, and I got my undergraduate degree in media studies in Germany. And as part of the studies, we had a big media theory seminar. And it now occurs to me that a lot of it was media ecology, although we didn't call it media ecology. So we covered Marshall McLuhan, Walter Benjamin, Niklas Luhmann, Foucault, Aurelio. And so, yeah, this is when I first learned about Marshall McLuhan, and this idea that any human-made artifact could be viewed as a medium was incredibly eye-opening. And so I immediately connected with the ideas and pursued a graduate degree in media studies, and then decided to come to the US.
Great.
Pursue a PhD.
And by the way, so I like your last name, Hildebrand, because it reminds me, I think I told you, it reminds me Adolf von Hildebrand, which is one of the so-called fathers of the form. So among a group of scholars like Wolflin, Riegel, the so-called Marburg School and so on, eventually they came up with the idea of how important is the form as a concept in painting, sculpture, and in general in any expressive form. So the idea that form affects the content. And in fact, Hildebrand, I think, is quoted by Mcluhan in the Mcluhan Galaxy, I think, but I'm pretty sure in the Project 69, the Understanding New Media project. And that kind of continental philosophy tradition really inspired Marshall McLuhan in arguing, designing the very concept of form as a way to understand, right? How our culture works and expresses itself. So anytime I think of you, it's Hildebrand, Adolf von Hildebrand. So I will call you Julia von Hildebrand.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, Julia. And talking about form and cause and even the formal cause, Julia, I'll be back to you in a little while. I want to bring back Corey, who, among many other tons of other things, Corey edited the special collection on Marshall McLuhan's formal cause, the Aristotelian heuristic that McLuhan employed as a way to understand the contemporary media environment. And so, Corey, firstly, let me introduce you properly and formally. Here we are. Corey Anton is an award-winning teacher and author at Grand Valley State University, Michigan, as well as a fellow of the International Communicology. If you're not familiar with the Communicology, maybe we can spend a few words on that. Communicology Institute. His publications can be found in journals, many other journals. And Anthony currently serves on the board of trustees for the Institute of General Semantics, which is another great milestone and passion for Corey, and on the editorial boards of the Atlantic Journal of Communication, Media Ethics, and Explorations in Media Ecology. So, Corey, welcome back again into the Monday Night Web.
Thank you, Paolo.
I know you prepared some special effects. We will talk about that, absolutely. But my first question is just to warm up. Firstly, where are you right now?
I'm in Grand Haven, Michigan. So we have a place in Grand Rapids, but we also have a place in Grand Haven. So I'm up by the lake shore in Michigan.
Great.
By Lake Michigan, yeah.
All right. Are you teaching right now or just waiting?
I just today finished the first 6 weeks of summer. So I did a 6-week all online, and I did it synchronous.
Right.
Yeah, 3.5 hours a day, twice a day, or twice a week. So it was Great. It was great. It was better than I would have thought it was going to be. It's sort of like the convention. I'm surprised by some of the advantages and merits, the perks that are to the all online instruction. It was much better than I would have thought it was going to be.
Yeah, we'll see the students' evaluations. Just kidding.
There is that. Yeah.
Me too. I'm pretty scared about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so no,
yeah,
it's a very first attempt. So we are learning, and I think there are many opportunities for rethinking, right, the way we undertake education, not only online but in general, right?
Yeah.
Great. Did you bring your? Did you find your secret symbolical object?
Oh, I do. I have it here, and this is
all right. Here we are. So
this is why I wanted to screen share with you.
Let me. Okay. Please feel free to share the screen.
Okay. So here, I'll screen share with you, and this was my attempt to talk about breakdown as breakthrough. Can you see me there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I will do this. It's only 37. It's only 37 seconds. So, but here we go.
Right, and let's see if the audio.
Breakdown as breakthrough. For a while, I've been aspiring to juggle 4 clubs, but I've not found time to do it. And so, the COVID situation has given me a little bit of time to at least practice. Let me see if I can give you a little bit 4 clubs. Here we go. Yeah, there you go.
Wow. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, that's it. That's it. That's all I got there, Paolo.
Folks on Facebook, please cheer to. I knew that you were a juggler, but yeah, very good.
I've been juggling balls for about 20 years, but I just started juggling clubs about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and four clubs is pretty tough. It's close to being as difficult as 5 balls. 5 balls.
Why the club is your symbolic object? So what's the meaningful relevancy of that?
Of the object?
Yeah.
Well, it's an expression of art that's naturally fleeting. You know, in my 2010 book, Source of Significance, I was really trying to get at the degree to which there are different forms of art, and the art that I'm most interested in is like song or dance or juggling or things that are beautiful, but they can't be hoarded. They can't be held or retained. And so, the natural fleeting beautiful is sort of something I'm interested in promoting.
Yeah, it's nice. I like the idea of being constantly in search of an equilibrium.
Oh yeah.
But the equilibrium is only when everything moves around. So it's a kind of equilibrium. So I like the idea of not being static. So always finding a new equilibrium.
Oh, juggling is wonderful. It's good for your brain. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, great. Maybe you can do some live juggling later tonight, okay?
We'll have to see. I can
even juggling with your mind and with words.
I'll bring some balls down and do some ball work. I don't know if I can do any club work here. I don't really have the right setup for clubs.
But by the way, let me also say that you are very good at juggling with words, using your language, using the semantic playing with words. So, and I always appreciate the way of your rhetoric, your ability to communicate.
Yes, thank you.
And so, all right, promise. We will juggling by words later tonight again, okay? I'll be back to you very soon. And let me bring back our next, actually we know already, Mcluhan. That's right.
That's right.
All right, because we Italians like all consonants and all vowels, so we want to pronounce precisely everything we see on the written page. So that's why I'm sorry. So
and the truth is, the name is Dutch, and it used to be with the ch at the end of it, and they got rid of it when they anglicized it so long ago. So you're probably.
I didn't want to say that, but
no.
I was following the Dutch pronunciation. Right?
That's right. Yep.
All right. Plugh. And so, Mike, firstly, are you somewhere in the New York City area, right?
Yeah, I'm in Westchester County, New York, so I'm not too far from the city. A little bit further than I used to be, but close. This is like a major epicenter for the COVID situation here, so we've been paying close attention, all along.
I see. And what's behind you? It's a screen or it's
Yeah,
just
that's my TV.
your TV with
and I have a little
Marshall Mcluhan.
Yeah, so I have a light here that is actually, my wife does a lot of work online with webinars and so forth, and she has a beauty light.
Oh,
so
I
borrowed it. And when I set myself up and I had Mcluhan in the background, and you can see when I turned it on, he got a halo, so I kept it. He's the angel over my shoulder.
Makes a lot of sense as the patron saint of Marshall Mcluhan, as the patron saint of Wired magazine. I think for a long while he was elected, acknowledged as the patron saint of Wired. So, good idea. That's a great idea for kicking off our discussion. The halo, right? Are you teaching right now? Oh, by the way, sorry. Hold on. Wait a minute. Yeah. Formal presentation. By the way, here we are. Mike Plugh completed his PhD in the Media and Communication program at Temple University, I think Japan, and he was a lecturer in the Department of Communication and Media Studies at Fordham University, and before taking a position as an assistant professor of communication at Manhattan College. Mike's scholarship is informed by the media ecology and general semantics traditions, particularly with respect to the writing of Neil Postman. And beyond many other things, let me point out that he is the president of the New York State Communication Association. And Mike, I still remember when we met kind of 10 years ago in Brussels. I don't know if you remember, we were in Brussels for a Mcluhan's conference, for the centenary conference. It was 2011. And I still remember that moment. I said, that's a very energetic guy. So so I still remember that moment when we met, starting confabulating among media ecologists, and it was a great conference, and you brought a lot of energy, and since then we know each other at the Media Ecology Annual Convention. We met almost every year, and so let me point out that you are one of the again energetic pillars of our scholarly organization, always bringing great ideas. So thank you for being who you are.
Thank you, Paolo. Yeah, and thank you for your leadership for the Media Ecology Association and for all that you do with the Mcluhan Center and setting these up. I've enjoyed the other 8 programs that you've had so far, and it's, I signed up for today's date, and it's been a long wait. I feel like I've enjoyed every one of your shows, and it's kind of fun to be here with you and live today.
Nice. Yeah. So Temple University, Japan, right?
I completed my PhD in Philadelphia, but I've subsequently done some teaching in the summertime at Temple's Japan campus. And
it's a Japan campus. Sorry.
There's a Japan campus, and I've done some summer teaching there. Yeah, and but of course, my annual trip to Japan during the summer has been interrupted by this situation. So I'm in New York.
All right. Sorry. And yeah, we are all yeah. And let me, I'll be back to you. I know you have a secret object, but keep it secret for now. Keep it secret for now. I'm very curious to know more about your secret object. I also wanted to, you have your quote, right? The Mcluhan's quote. We will be talking about the Mcluhan's quote. Okay. I'll be back to you, Mike, in a little while, and I'll just conclude the first merry-go-round, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you. All right, and see, in the meantime, Sal Greco, and then again, Jean-François Vallée from Montreal. Hello. And again, if you look this way, Facebook user, so do not look this way, please, remember to grant StreamYard permission to grab your name and profile. So just visit streamyard.com/Facebook, and so you will show up with your real name and photo profile. So let me say hi to John Caputo. Mike, say hi to George Miller in Japan Temple. So I think Mike will do that. And hello, John Caputo from Gonzaga University. It's a pleasure to have you again here and with us for the Monday night webinars. And so I told you I'm very excited, not only for the for putting together this series of Monday night webinars. I'm very excited because there is a community of people in Toronto, outside, all across the world, in Japan, I think. Junichi, are you here? Junichi Miyazawa from Japan. I think next week he will join us. So it's an international community of friends and colleagues gathering together to rediscover the art of togetherness, particularly in response to this particular moment. And so, among many other friends and colleagues who inspired my sense of togetherness and my sense of belonging to the Marshall McLuhan's community, there is a special person that I'm going to introduce right now, a special person who I will say is a genuine McLuhan scholar, but in a very applied way. So he was able to apply many of the McLuhan's concepts and insights to his professional and academic intellectual life. So I've been inspired by him and in his ability to apply the McLuhan's concepts to the real life. And so it's a great pleasure again to bring back Luigi Ferrara into the Monday night webinar. Luigi, so thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Paolo.
All right, I'm going to read your biography just for a more formal presentation. Luigi Ferrara is the Dean of the Center for Arts, Design and Information Technology at George Brown College in Toronto. He's a registered architect with still a member of the Ontario Association of Architects and the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, as well as an honorary member of the Association of Chartered Industrial Designers of Ontario. He was appointed at George Brown College in 2022. In 2027, he was appointed as the director of the Center for Arts and Design. Among many other appointments and achievements, I like to point out he is also the director of the Institute Without Boundaries at George Brown College, which is a research and academic center that really fosters, among many other things, but fosters the idea of design thinking. So how to put people together and share, and not just brainstorming, but creating a meaningful, relevant, and practical outcomes out of discussion. So the design thinking methodology that goes under the banner of the Charrette methodology. I learned from Luigi this very technique, such a great technique to really foster participation, design thinking, and practical outcomes. So I want to point out again, among many other things, that Luigi, in terms of McLuhan's approach, he was able to really apply McLuhan in these special activities and projects and many other enterprises. So thank you, Luigi, for playing so well in the McLuhan's scholarship and for acting like McLuhan did with creativity and design thinking. So, Luigi, again, where are you right now, Luigi?
I'm in Toronto in my home office, and I've been here for the last 4 months, running the school and trying to make everything work because we're running our programs and we continue to make everything happen that we've been working on, including doing virtual charrettes, which we've started to do to help cultural organizations survive, but also to help our partners in Milan in the newly opening Meet Digital Cultural Center there, and helping Lombardy try to plan for a recovery in the cultural sector, both in the performing arts, cultural institutions, and tourism.
Yeah, I was very curious. How is running a charrette online? I mean, I've been attending, participating in a few of your events. I think the magic of that events is gathering together, sharing the same room, sharing many other techniques that you have employed to foster creative and design thinking. So, how is charrette in a very unconventional setting for a in-person charrette? How was running a charrette online?
Yeah, so it was super interesting because we were concerned, like the whole beauty of the charrette is that you compress people into a space and you get them interacting, you get their interdisciplinary knowledge being shared. So it's actually quite exciting, and you're facing problems and you have a limited time period to get it done. But a virtual charrette actually has other benefits and advantages because you're bringing the people into this virtual space to do a similar thing, and you have a different set of tools than you would have in the physical space. And in an odd way, it actually focuses it and makes it more, it compresses it even further. And it really creates a lot of interesting results, and you're immediately able to capture them and then review them because they're all being captured digitally and visualized digitally as it's happening. And with our other charrettes, we usually take time to generate materials, but the materials are being captured on the fly. And it's, I think, actually more productive for companies to do the charrettes in this way. And the other thing about them is that we have to make them shorter because you just, we used to do 2 or 3 days continuous. Sure. And now what we're doing is dividing the charrettes into 3-hour periods and doing them over a few days or over a few weeks. And it's been interesting and exciting. And it's been exciting to pioneer them because the original reason we founded the Institute in a way was to overcome the problem of sequential specialization. And so I had I had created something like Zoom over 22 years ago, almost the exact same interface as Zoom back then. And it was to allow people to collaborate interdisciplinarily across distance to create solutions for design and architecture and urban planning. And the interesting part is that the Institute itself was a version of that because people weren't ready to collaborate in this way. But the pandemic has accelerated something that, like, I knew it was going to take 10 years for people to use the tools that had been existing back in 1998. But they're now all of a sudden, because the context has changed, they're more relevant. If you think about it, Zoom probably was a struggling tech company before this, and so was StreamYard and others, right? And now all of a sudden, because the context and the environment has changed, they're all of a sudden super critical to our lives.
Yep, absolutely right. And now you see, folks, why Luigi was so kind of pioneer in experimenting. So I really appreciate your ability to capture new ways of fostering participation, again, design thinking, new ways of living, right? Which was one of your main projects a few years ago. New ways of living. And by the way, you mentioned the MIT Center for Digital Culture in Milan. Let me say hi to Maria Grazia Mattei. Hi, Maria Grazia. If you are, I'm not sure now. It's 3 a.m. in Italy, so I don't think. But because this has been recorded, so maybe Maria Grazia, you will see one day this recording. So, thank you for Maria Grazia for fostering digital culture awareness in Italy. So, hello. Something happened to Luigi's connection. I don't see him anymore on the green room. So he will be back. He will be back. I'm sure. I'm confident Luigi will be back. All right. And so again, if you, by the way, are interested in this idea of design thinking methodologies, check it out, the Institute Without Boundaries here in Toronto. It's a great center for really learning how to employ these methodologies to foster cultural participation, participatory design, and many other things. All right. Hello, Riddle Me Walker. What word are they saying? What's going on? All right. Zoom as an acoustic spaceship. I like this, Andrew. Thank you very much. Andrew. Zoom as an acoustic spaceship. And I learned a joke during this past MEA convention. The more you zoom, the less you focus. The more you zoom, the less you focus. Sometimes it can be a little bit distracting. And talking about that, let me bring back Julia, which is waving and saying hi with a no, I think you were great on Zoom. So to engage your I think you have been running a few panels at the MEA convention. What was your impression or your feeling on running this convention in a new setting, in a new online setting, Julia? Although Julia, you should unmute yourself. Right.
Thank you. Here we go.
No, because I cannot unmute you. So you have to do that.
Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead. So what about the online panels?
I have to say I was one of the skeptics at first and was ever more so surprised how great it went. We actually had full-on authentic panels with great Q&A, with great presentations and slides and videos. And my personal highlight was one of the panels that had a high school student and a bachelor student presenting on postmen and politics and our media environments. And it was the next generation of media ecologists, and they were just fantastic. And it was so good to welcome them. And of course, there's the classics, the highlights from our key thinkers in the field. And so overall, it was a good community building moment for us. And I don't think it was the last online convention. I think there'll be more.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I liked that the new format inspired new ways of presenting, right? In the panels I've been sharing or attending and so on, I've seen a video presentation. Well, sometimes there were some boring kind of PowerPoint visual presentations with a voiceover, and so that was not very inspiring, honestly. But I saw some video presentations, creative video editing, montage, a collage of images and voices, and so I think how the medium affects the actual content, right? So many presenters were able to play and explore different ways of presenting research and academic outcomes in a new fashion way. So I liked that the Zoom, the online platform, facilitated more creativity and a variety of expressions in the way we present our boring research.
Very much so. And you know what was the big surprise medium, as it is actually for your webinars? It's the chat. It's the chat which allows you to engage in real time with your audience. And I had a wonderful presentation. Nick Artman was the person presenting. He was presenting on radio. And while he was presenting, he was asking people to write in the chat what genres they were listening to, etc. So he was the audience was part of his academic talk, and it was very clever. And I think this is a new trend. I think this is something we can use to our advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And multi-format, simultaneous multi-format, so chatting, video, messages. So it's it's nice to learn how we can make sense of this brand new situation. And as Luigi was saying, by the way, Luigi's back. Finally, Luigi's back. And no, thank you, Luigi. We were talking about how the very online format of the MEA Media Ecology Annual Convention facilitated new ways of presenting papers or any other academic research. So many many presenters were able to creatively come up with new kind of presentations, new formats, videos. In one of the sessions I've been chairing, there was a PhD student from Prague University working on some ethical in journalism research, and so she made a pretty professional video to present her research. So I've never seen something like that in a conference, in a kind of academic conference setup. So I'm glad to see that again. This new medium is allowing us, is fostering new kind of messages, new contents, new forms of expression, right? So I think it's great. Same for your charrette, right? So Luigi, you were talking about the charrette design thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've had, what was interesting is we had lay people coming into the charrettes and using tools like Mural and Zoom board and Stormboard, and it's been very interesting how the space is so porous and so many things can be happening. And like Julia was saying, it becomes so much more interesting because you're watching something, but you can be understanding people's reactions to it. When we do the charrettes, we actually have often WhatsApp on. We have the charrette framework in Zoom. Then we have Mural up. So we have multiple applications, and we have video streaming, and now we're making a virtual campus for our school where you'll be able to actually go into a game engine and run around the school, and then go into a room, go up to a virtual computer, and then interact with like Zoom and with the other platforms. So I think what you're seeing is what a growth of what I used to call the electronic city, which is really like new digital spaces that we're living in and occupying. And, they're not really virtual, they're physical, but they're, part of screens and part of Internet of Thing arrangements. And they're very interactive, and they, in a way, it's not so much that they're democratizing, but they allow for a level of interaction that's unmediated or uncontrolled. And so sometimes people are not comfortable with them because they're so uncontrolled and they're so dynamic.
Sure. And also there is a learning curve. So we are experimenting. I like this particular moment. In any field, we are learning. We are learning new things, new technologies, new methodologies. We are learning a lot. So it's I see this particular moment globally, among many other things, of course, but how we are really learning to be resilient to this particular moment, and learning something new, learning how to make sense of it. And I think this is what makes us human, right? In terms of how we can adapt to any situation and take the best out of it. By the way, out of curiosity, how is George Brown going to offer courses this coming fall? Are you going online, hybrid? So what's going on?
Majority of our courses will be online, and then a few critical courses where we're working with essential workers, like with nurses and personal support workers that are really needed. We're allowing them to come back to the school for limited courses. So most of the courses will be online, but certain lab courses can only be completed. Other programs like our theater programs and our dance program, which during the summer we did online, for the new intake, we've just pushed them to January with the hopes that by then it will be a better situation.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Great. And again, let me remind, if you are interested in design thinking, methodology as a process, the idea of participatory design thinking, Charrette, so reach out the Institute Without Boundaries in Toronto, and Luigi's and Folks and a lot of wonderful people there will be able to support, because I learned a lot from you, Luigi, from the Institute Without Boundaries.
Actually, Paolo, maybe I can mention we're working right now with Columbia University we did a project with Meet in 2015 called Future Ways of Living, which was really about the redesign of our societal systems. And so we're doing a new version of it, and we hope to involve universities across the world in that process. And we'll be looking at our societal institutions and how they're changing at this moment, and how they're dramatically going to need to change. And so we'll be having these participatory design exercises. So we will be in the fall and in the spring working online with cities around the world and schools around the world that want to collaborate together. So anyone who wants to know more about that, just reach out to me.
Absolutely. Reach out to Luigi. So thank you for sharing. In the meantime, Giulia, what are you teaching right now? So what do you teach exactly?
I'm teaching media and society, critical studies in new media, and I will be teaching a new course, Disengaging the Digital, which is meant as a media fast or digital detox. And of course, it might be online, so I will have to rethink and become creative with how to do a digital detox in a digital classroom. So that'll be interesting.
All right. And talking about who we are on Zoom, Giulia, I'll be back to you because I want to engage with a one-to-one conversation with Corey. Let me turn your head right.
Is it right? I gotta get this way.
All right, engaging conversation. Okay.
Well, I'm talking with you this way. Right? No, I gotta get this way.
This way. Okay, this way. So, who we are? Ontological question: who we are when we are on Zoom?
Who are we when we were on Zoom?
Who are we when we are on Zoom?
I think we're some product of the net imagination of all those who would look at us. I mean, there's one sense in which we're being for each other, like you were asking us to turn our faces for each other, but there's a wider audience looking at us, and depending on who's looking at us, we're either younger or older, or I wanted to say this. One of the most surreal I had an amazing Media Ecology Association convention. The highlight for me was the Marianne Wolf presentation, but one of the more surreal moments was when we were talking about, there was a plenary on inclusion and talking about the possibilities of having more inclusion and more inclusionary practices. And the person, one of the people who was like running the show said, yeah, well, this is kind of limited because we're all white. This is what the person says. And then one of the panelists said, well, no, I'm not. I don't see myself as white. And I think it was sort of shocking because, race and politics of identity, these are so fraught with the ambiguities of something like self-asserted identities and other attributed identities. And we're always caught within a dynamic of relations between others. So I think, Zoom, it maybe gives the appearance of, a particular avatar in a digital space, but I think it's much more a kind of contested identity across a multiplicity of locations that make it very, very difficult to specify and delimit.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I was looking at how people, we did it, play with the background, right? You know, changing the background. Okay, at the beginning, maybe it's just for fun, it's just for playing, but little by little, we are making sense of this virtual background. For instance, for privacy matters, you know, where you're maybe playing with not only with the ground, with the figures. That's very scary, very weird. Okay,
Right.
But again, so I think we are playing, but we are learning how to make sense of it. So privacy matters. For it may be related to, you can use your background as a way to show some content. Maybe you want to show a picture, you want to show something, you can put it on the background. So just stepping back this way, you imagine you have a background, so you can even use the background as a way, as an important visual for engaging the audience, the viewer, and so on. So
right, but I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. I think that's a really good call. But I think it also amplifies the sense of the digital divide, that some people really do have a command over these technologies. They have the equipment, the latest, tech gear and assistance. Other people really struggle with that. So there is, I guess, a new kind of impression management, a new kind of performative identity, which is the command over the technologies to present your avatar in desirable or, somewhat fashionable ways.
Great. So now I'm going to show you some philosophical concerns coming from our Facebook comment stream and so on. So here you are. I'll show you a few, and then you pick the one you like the most. Okay. Here, that's who are we when we are not on Zoom. Let me go on, and then we can. On Zoom, we are both live and delayed, sync and async. Identity is a static, a simulacrum of content that can be molded. The effect is what Lacan would call the objet petit. Alfonso. And then we have a few here. Again, Nai. On Zoom, we are bodies without organs. Deleuze remembrance. And discarnate. This is good. This is great. Alfonso, Zulus. Zulus is great. So round of applause for Zulus. And no, Andrew, discarnate man. This is a Mcluhan's concept. Discarnate man. I think that applies very well.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's a Facebook user. I don't know who is this. So what's your take on those philosophical insights coming from the chat?
think, Andrew Mcluhan's comment there about, we're disincarnate. I think that's very right, that we're pure voice or pure moment unfolding in the digital ether. But there does seem to be a sense in which, as I say, I think identity politics have become so heightened and so aggravated, partly because there is a multidimensionality to identity that when you're face to face, it gets resolved in terms of who you're interacting with, and you can see how you're different than them, similar to them, and you're able to negotiate it. But when it's just here and you're broadcasting yourself and you don't know who the audience is, subject position is so much more nebulous and so much more difficult. Valerie and I had did a paper. We did a paper many years ago on subject position and just trying to lay out the distinction between self-asserted positions and other attributed positions is really important. That, like, people, for Sartre, it has to do with the difference what he would call sadism and masochism. And that the sadist, they think of themselves as the unlooked at looker. They're just judging others, but they're never an object for others to judge. Whereas the masochist, this is a person who sees themselves as largely just an object in others' worlds, and they're something that's looked at, but they don't ever return the look. And that dynamic of sadism and masochism, it happens across, cultures. It happens across dominant populations or minority populations. Roughly, the difference could be said that men have a tendency to be more sadist, women have a tendency to be more masochistic. And again, by Sartre's terms, it has to do with more, are you seeing yourself as a subject? Are you seeing yourself as an object? And I think all of those dynamics just get magnified tenfold when you're dealing with the multiplicity of identities that are being negotiated like online here to unknown audiences.
Great. And at this stage, I'm curious to know Mike's comments on your comments. He's there. Looking at here you are, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike. So, firstly, what's your take on the Zoom setting for the conference and the way we express our identity in that special format and so on? What's your take on and your response to the AMA convention that just had last week?
Well, I think when you're talking about identity, it's important to talk about where identity is rooted in a feedback loop. That feedback is a big part of how you construct your identity and the interior and how you adjust and so forth. And I think that's what's missing in some respects. Even in an environment like this, which resembles television to a certain extent, I can see some of the feedback in the comments, and I have a sense of some of the people who are watching, many of whom I know, but many of whom I don't. And I don't necessarily have a sense of the broad range of people. That's the issue of context collapse. And so I think in the absence of a really strong feedback loop, you can only sort of stab at who you think you are. And Zoom, my experiences with Zoom, you don't typically experience Zoom with the majority of people providing feedback as strangers. You typically have a context for these Zoom calls and so forth. So I do think you have some idea of what you're supposed to perform and how you should expect whether it's going to go well or not, and that sort of thing. But I think Andrew and Corey tapped into the idea that without a body, we're sort of these flat two-dimensional figures. I tried to add some light in the background to make myself pop out a little bit more and be three-dimensional, but it's all an illusion. And I think that's why in this environment or in this situation, we're content to experience one another's presence this way because we've been deprived of the way that we're most familiar with. And this is a suitable substitute for that, but that we're all sort of struggling to figure out what it is we're supposed to be doing here. My kids just before I came on were arguing with each other, and it occurred to me that they were, because of their close interface and the frequency and the volume of their interactions, they were on each other's nerves. And that struck me as what we're doing in this environment. Electronically, we're on each other's nerves here, but the interface isn't abrasive enough at this point because it's short. We're happy to see each other and so forth. But I think in a normal situation where you have lots of face-to-face contact with people and you've asserted the identity that's most familiar to you in physical space, to continue to disembody yourself in this environment, this interface becomes more abrasive, and this really gets on my nerves, right? Like this is not a thing that I would like to do as a permanent feature of my everyday life. But yeah, Corey,
Yeah, I would still jump in. I think those just amazing, really thoughtful and insightful comments there, Mike. I think the thing that I would want to just follow up on that is, we were mid-March. We had just got out of spring break, and in my grad class, which is a media ecology grad class, we were in the middle of reading Sherry Turkle's Alone Together. And the students halfway through, before we had been shelter in place, were very critical, and they were very, very much in line with Sherry Turkle's argument in going, we need to get back to face. We need to, unplug, and we need, we were celebrating Tiffany Schlane's work on 24/6, and we were saying we got to do this. And then all of a sudden we got thrown in a shelter in place, and we had to pick up the class all online, and the ground changed beneath us. And suddenly all the students were saying, I'm so thankful that we can at least meet this way, because it is so painful to be isolated. It's so painful to not be able to hug our relatives, to hug our loved ones. It's so hard that this is such a second best, but it's a really much better than nothing.
And I think we're not strangers in this environment at this point, which is helpful. Is that, we've had these experiences to a certain degree over a number of years now. It's all relatively new in the grand scheme of things, but we've had enough experiences online with one another that it was a relief to be able to have this. And we recognized it. I think people said, oh, thank goodness, imagine if this had happened 20 years ago or 40 years ago, what must it have been like back then? And of course, I think you probably would have had worse parts of the experience and better parts of the experience. But for us, I think having this world that we've occupied, it made a lot of sense, and it was a relief. It was the safety net underneath us, I think.
Yeah.
Great. And I was keeping an eye on the comments by the way, so let me say hi to Tom Giancarelli, our pillar in the Media Ecology, founder and pillar of the Media Ecology Association. Yes, there is the chat both on YouTube and Facebook. The only way where the two chats merge finally, it's on the live stream. So feel free to chat. And there are a few other folks I wanted to mention.
How do we send comments or links or things or chats to the people here? Like I see Jerry, he's giving pandemic or infodemic or pundemic.
Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Hello, Jerry.
I think it might be all three, Jerry.
Yeah, because Jerry is on YouTube right now. You see the red icon. So
is there a way to share that with him? Is there a way to respond and send a link or an anything here on the chats?
I think
because I got the link for you, Jerry.
All right.
Hold it up on a piece of paper.
I like the simultaneity of different, but basically yes, because we are streaming simultaneously on different platforms. So that was happening.
Send me an email. I'll send you a link.
All right, Jerry. Please reach out to Corey for that. And so, firstly, I wanted to say hi to a few friends, including Clinton and. Tom, I said already, and many others. Jerry and from Brazil. I don't know who you are. Hi from Brazil. Again, please be reminded to authorize StreamYard.com/Facebook to grab your name and profile if you are commenting from the Facebook group, because it's a private Facebook group. You have to allow Facebook to grab your name and profile. So no privacy settings compromised, just the name and profile for the photo profile for the streaming. Okay, so feel free to do it. Otherwise, you will look like a kind of anonymous user from Brazil. So thank you for following us. And again, so it's time to, my friends, it's time to find and reveal our special objects. We know already Corey's special object, and so the club. And then I'll be back to you, Corey, in a little while. So I'd like to bring back Julia here. So Julia, what's your special object?
Well, actually, it replaced the flowers that were behind me a second ago. Speaking of identity making on Zoom and the performative character of the screen. But my object is my drone, Jay. Some of you may have met him already during the MEA convention. And since Paolo is encouraging us to change our perspective for this webinar, I figured the flying camera is a nice metaphor for thinking about the way we can change our perspective. And In many ways, the drone also reminds me of the virus as another airborne medium, as another medium that can be considered quite invasive, invading our private spaces. If a drone is hovering near our bedroom or bathroom window, for example, the same way that the virus is invasive when it comes to our bodies as a private space. But, and of course, military drones mean death from the sky and through the air. But these more civilian camera drones, when we point the camera back down at ourselves, they allow us to situate ourselves geographically and look at ourselves and where we came from, where we're going, where we are in relation to the rest of the world, and think of ourselves as a medium and what we're doing.
Great. And what about yours, Mike? Your object to make sense.
I've got a knockoff George Nelson clock here, and
wow.
So there were a few reasons that I thought that this item. So there were a few reasons that I thought that this item was interesting because, one, I'm a fan of George Nelson's work, and he and Mcluhan were contemporaries, and he did a lot of interesting things, not only with design, with furnishings and so forth, interiors and so forth, but he wrote a book in 1977 called How to See Visual Adventures in a World God Never Made. And if anybody's ever had a chance to look at a book, at that book, it looks a little bit more conventional version of the medium as the massage, but it's a way that he's trying to do a visual literacy. And I thought that the clock, the design of the clock, the person who designed the clock has some connections to the way that we talk about media, the way that we talk about sensory biases and so forth. But I also thought it brought up the issue of time, which is really the single most interesting thing to me about the COVID situation that we're in, is the way that it's reoriented our perception of time. And I don't think that there's a we that is inclusive of everyone, because people's circumstances are very different. But I have more sort of questions and probes than I do answers about it. But I think it's interesting how the mechanical clock, which was already being subverted by digital time and other kinds of time experience, has completely fallen away, and to the point we don't know what day it is anymore. Throughout the day, the only way we know exactly what time it is when we're hungry, or when we understand signals from the outdoors and so forth. But I feel like time is one of the most interesting phenomena that's shifted around. Well, the time hasn't shifted. Time as a perception is shifted a lot, and that's what I had on my mind. So I brought my clock.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. And let me tell you, I want to thank you because I got a few ideas while you were speaking about time passing, the perception of timing of time, which is changing right now. I got a few ideas for the Global Village Day, which is a kind of a time marathon. It's 12 hours online streaming marathon. I got a few ideas for the Global Village Day. So thank you for your insights on the time passing. I think on July the 20th for the Global Village Day, we can play a little bit with the sense of timing, the time passing. Thank you. Thank you for this insightful remark. And so, all right. So, Mike, who else? We saw the clock. Luigi, your special. Where is Luigi? Sorry, I lost you here. Luigi, your. Here we are. Sorry, I got a little bit confused today. What about yours? Your object.
So, when the pandemic started, I found this object that I had purchased about 10 years ago. At it's actually two angels inside a snow globe in a teacup, and I bought it at a shop in a place called Lilydale, which is out of it's near Chautauqua in New York. And I bought it because this idea of these two angels inside this world of their own, it reminded me at that time of deepest loves and our deepest cares, and how someone had made such a kitsch object that was so profoundly emotional. But during the pandemic, it made me feel like what it was like to be me and my wife in this little world of our own. And I think it really reflects, like, you can see beyond, but you're in this, that your physical connection is only with this person that you're with in the lockdown that you're in, right? And over the years, I've been thinking more and more, like, we used to think of ourselves as I think, therefore I am. As a designer, I always felt that design is how we share, and that now we're feeling that, I think most people feel that if I share, I am now, right? And so I think of all of us in this cyber grip, in this little bubble, in this physical bubble, then reaching out through this cyber grip, as Arthur Kroper would call it, our relationship with our screens and our devices. And something happened during the pandemic that was really odd. My daughter came back, and she got involved in a kind of war. Her and her friends were like basically trying to reach out and let this person in Spain know. She was a makeup artist on YouTube, and she was showing how she could make her face darker. And so they thought of it as blackface, and they thought it was so wrong. And so they were reaching out to her, and they were making her feel bad. And I was kind of saying to them, but do you know her? Why are you, reaching out to her? And they felt it was so important to reach out to her and to talk to her and to get her to stop doing what she was doing, because it was hurting society. And meanwhile, I'm sure they were pretty much hurting her feelings too, right? So it's the sense, I think, right now is that if we're not sharing, we're really not knowing that we're alive. And it's only in these sharing interconnections, other than the sharing in the bubble like this, with the people that you're closest to, that there's this desperate trying to share out and to be part of a big culture. And when you asked which Mcluhan probe, one of the things that I was really super inspired by are the early distant warning cards. But this one says, propaganda is any culture in action, by Jacques Ellul, right? And, just thinking of the world these days, how true this is. There are these kind of culture wars, and really they're just different forms and shapes and kinds of propaganda. And we're trying to interact with them. We're trying to make sense of them. We're trying to deal with them. But they're invading our bubble, and they're interacting in this kind of calamitous way. So that's the object I chose, and that was why.
Thank you. And by the way, can you shake it for us so to see the? Hold on. All right, here we are. Oh, okay, magic. Let me say, okay, in a lockdown bubble, the shaking it, sharing, right? Shake it. The more you shake, the more you share. All right, I like to synthesize this way. Great, and thank you for bringing up your Mcluhan's quote. In fact, I've been asking to our guests to identify a Mcluhan's quote to make sense of the current scenario and situation. So you got the Dewline deck of cards quote, Luigi. Do you have another quote? That's the only one you have, right?
That was the one that I was thinking about most.
Yeah, great. And so let me go to our to inquire, Julia, your quote, which is this is a chorus. I think that's yours, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. When new technologies impose themselves on societies long habituated to older technologies, anxieties of all kinds result and pop up. And so, why did you choose this one?
I came across this quote from the Book of Probes a while ago, and it sort of stuck with me, and I'm still thinking about it. What catches me with this quote is, of course, this idea of technologies and new technologies, and we can think of the virus as a new technology that is then bringing other technologies, as Luigi was saying, front and center because the context has changed. And the other part of the quote that I really like is this notion of anxiety and anxieties. And of course, anxiety, first of all, is a medical condition, but it's also this discomfort, this feeling of nervousness, worry, concern about what may happen in the future. And then there's a third meaning to anxiety. That's an eagerness to do something. I'm anxious to get this done. I'm anxious to go out. I'm anxious to travel. So there's these, and he says anxieties of all kinds of results. So of course we're nervous with new technologies and we have concerns, but there is also an eagerness to respond to this new uptake of a new medium. And this is where I see the work of media ecology come in. It's this eagerness to respond to new environments, not just in a nervous, loss of control worry, but also as an eagerness to unpack what is going on.
And I think we can ask for Mike's Mike's Plugh's quote, which is anti-environment, right?
That's right.
This is yours.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Anti-environments provide. Just skipping one portion. Okay. Anti-environments provide means of direct attention and enable us to see and understand more clearly. The interplay between the old and the new environments creates many problems and confusions. So, what's your take on this? Mcluhan's quote.
That's always one of my favorites. I mean, that's on my mind a lot in general. And actually, when you snipped out a piece of it, you snipped out the phrase about counter situations made by artists, which was a big part of it. Actually, I think it's in the ellipses there. And recently, I've been thinking about who are the artists that are, providing these counter situations that are directing our attention. Who are these artists? And Mcluhan was obviously fond of visual artists and authors and poets and so forth. And it struck me that there's another way to think about it possibly. And I'll give you one quick example in the realm of our political theater. A couple days ago, I suppose, when Trump was holding his rally in Tulsa, the people planning the rally and his sort of handlers and so forth believed that they were going to have something in the neighborhood of 1 million people, or some enormous number larger than the 19,000 in the arena. And the reason that they believed that was because K-pop fans on TikTok decided to collaborate to game the system to sign up for free seats and then not show up for them. And so they build an enormous stage for the exterior of the arena so he can appear in person indoors and then in person outdoors and go through this enormous trouble. And of course, I think the gift that we were given by these relatively anonymous K-pop fans on a little thing called TikTok was that it revealed the political theater for what it was. The theater breaks down, and creating many problems and confusions in this case were for the political insiders, for the people who were in control of and who were putting on this political theater, including folks in institutional and traditional media and the political establishment. So I'm on the lookout all the time for a lot of these folks who don't necessarily look like the traditional artists in the artistic media that we're familiar with through museums and through libraries and so forth. But these people who are manipulating and playing with these electronic environments and the other things that we're immersed in, to reveal them to us and show us, who's pulling the strings, in other words.
Great. And I was looking at a few comments from the Facebook group. both spoken, Mcluhan and Lacan spoke on anxiety in present ways. And so there are a few interesting parallels between Mcluhan and Lacan in this regard. And let me bring in back Corey, and so we can comment a few minutes on your quote, which is the price of eternal vigilance is indifference, right?
Yeah. And, I guess mine sounds perhaps the least optimistic of the groups. Not that Mcluhan was particularly optimistic or pessimistic, but I think people need to be sobered about how well humans are designed to tolerate this kind of watchfulness. And, I'm here in Michigan. We did some of the best job in the US in clamping down. We did early shelter in place, and we've still done pretty well. But I can already see it. People are trying to ignore the pandemic. They imagine that it will just go away. And maybe it will, but I don't think it's going to. It could go the way of Mars and SARS or something like, or SARS or MERS. But I don't think it's going to. I think that, it's unfortunate that so many people are just exhausted. And then, the masks are coming off and people are no longer social distancing. So you can sort of see it. I think, for Mcluhan, it's maybe the question of how do we re-amplify our interest by a change of direction. Maybe it's partly taking a rest. You need that day of rest in between, but it's also changing tactics, changing direction, that we need different forms of vigilance and different forms of strategies rather than just the one-eyed mania of the eternal vigilance, Wow. Right? Yeah, Andrew, exactly.
Andrew, yeah. Pointing out optimism and pessimism in
that's from The Medium is the Light. That's a great essay quotes chapter in there. That's really great stuff.
Yeah. And so, all right, it's 9:30. 9:30, it's time for addressing the core question I've been sharing with my guests. I'm gonna bring you all together into the stream right now, because the core question. So, what are the lessons we are learning in this current situation? So, what are the lessons we are learning? How we can take advantage? How we can make sense of the current situation for the better? For aiming and creating the better from out of this situation. So, what are the lessons we are learning? Anyone wants to start kicking off the idea of the lessons we are learning? Corey, go ahead.
I will leap in this real quickly. I'll try to be brief here as well. I know people want to say things as well. I think for me, it's that there is optimism that, we don't have to be pessimistic. We don't have to be pessimistic about the prospects of teaching online. Like I said, I'm waiting to see my evals. We'll have to see, or the course evals. But I think, for my own experience, I've been teaching college 28 years now. And I think I've always been interested in hearing different pedagogical practices and different teaching advice, and I've always took it with a grain of salt and went, good advice. Maybe that's going to work for me, not work for me. I've heard a lot of people talk right now about the virtues of asynchronous instruction and say, if you're going to teach online, make it all asynchronous. I don't know if that's going to work given the current situation of students given COVID. I think they need synchronicity. So I think part of it is learning to listen to other people, hear all the different teaching advices that are being given, but really try to ask yourself what works best for you. For me, it's about getting really great readings and then creating the kind of accountability that makes sure that students are adequately prepared. The new Blackboard system is kind of an Old Testament God. It's got lots of rules and little forgiveness. So you can come in and be like hello people, let me come in and be gentle with you now. So, I think there are ways that I can create an environment online that, again, is very rigorous, but also flexible, adaptive. It has asynchronous components. So I'm really optimistic about some of this. Let me just end with this. Right before the pandemic happened, our dean was offering across the campus a $3,000 initiative to any faculty who could propose a a fully online course. And a lot of us scoffed and went, never, I'll never teach this. You couldn't pay me to propose it. And now after I see it all and I learned so many different applications, I think I've been humbled, and I think very differently about the prospects or the possibilities of meaningful interaction. And I will also add, the Media Ecology Association was just it was the football through the goalpost of clearly you can have meaningful, robust interaction in an all online environment. So it's just it proved it to me in some profound way.
Yeah, great. And by the way, so I wanted to bring a comment from YouTube and so the hot cool media concepts. In fact, check it out on YouTube. There is a wonderful lecture by Corey on hot and cool media, and I think it's a great way to understand the hot and cool media concept, watching Corey's video. All right, so the lessons we are learning. And by the way, so that your dean was such a prescient mind in understanding that we need to invest in rethinking online education. All right, so thank you, Corey, for sharing your thoughts. So what are the lessons we are learning? So who else wants to comment on this? Julia, Luigi, Mike. Julia was first. Go ahead.
I hope you don't mind me zooming out, pun intended,
sure.
for a moment. But of course, with this increased communicative digital travel that we're experiencing, or if we're so lucky to have internet connections and the devices that allow us to do us, with that, we've also experienced something along the lines of a mobility shock, as my advisor would say, Mimi Scheller, especially in March, when all of a sudden the kind of physical movement that makes us a global village, it came to a sort of halt, with aviation slowing down, with maritime travel slowing down, passenger travel especially. And right now, a lot of borders are still limiting entry. And so I've always been thinking about the world as a global village, but now I'm even, there's a humility now in taking international travel for granted. We can't anymore. And you start to think of the always interesting entanglement between communication and transportation that goes way back, and communication is amplified and transportation, at least passenger transportation, is slowed down. And so those kind of frictions and tensions I find really interesting and humbling, as we're encouraged to stay at home, to decrease our bodily movement, but our mind can travel so much further, and thus also inviting people that are elsewhere into our conversation. So the good and the bad coming together.
Sure. Mike, Luigi, what are the lessons we are learning? Luigi.
Well, for me, it's been really a kind of underpinning of how our systems totally change once something in the context or the ecology changes, once something in the context is distorted or amplified. So if you think even natural ecologies, if one species gets too big, all of a sudden everything changes. And then, there's a disruptor, and then they even, die out. And so I think a lot of things are ending, starting, we started the pandemic and we were told to spend money at the college. And then 4 months into it now, we're told to cut deeply, right? So what really is happening is, there's a reality that coalesces, an ecology that builds up for an instant because of a certain contextual drivers that are overwhelming. And then as they change, the whole aspect changes. So the online teaching, I've seen, 5, often really good teachers in my institution just say, I can't go forward. They're not going to meet that change, they're going to change their life and move in another direction. And, I'm pretty sure that we're not ever going to go back to fulsome in-class use. And so I worked on master planning for our college, and I see our master planning needs being radically changed and shifted because there's so much more online space, and some of the things are so much better online. And then other things are going to, be responded to, and they're going to be urgent to be in place and physical. But this tension, I see it in fast evolution, and I think you've seen it also. Trump was almost, in the U.S., he was almost guaranteed re-election, and now the context has changed so dramatically. And it's looking like he's anachronistic. So I would say the big thing for us all to worry about is the ecology making, the changing ecology making us anachronistic? And are we part of the new ecology as we're moving forward? So that's the thing that really I'm watching, and I'm even watching myself to see how I feel about this new world that I'm entering into. And if I think back on one of the biggest lessons of Mcluhan was not to judge too moralistically, but to just try to understand what's changing and what is really happening. And for me, that's been, as an administrator and a dean, and I have, about 500 staff and 4,500 students, like, how is their life changing, and how are we helping them, and how am I moving through it? What are the right things to do? How will I respond? I just think, understanding context is everything in the next year and a half. I think the worst financial is just starting to come, because everyone is starting to realize that, they're out $80 million of income. Right? They're out $100 million, right? And, I think the next year is going to be incredibly difficult. And if we're not focused on how we use these tools to improve our lives, we're going to be swept through history in the way that it was in the past, and where, the whole context. If I think of someone in the Czech Republic in 1935, they probably thought their world was a fantastic place. And then 4 years later, they didn't recognize it. And then 50 years later, it still had not become what it was in 1935, right? So, I think there's a real risk that the context and the ecology is changing.
Right. No, thank you for sharing this. It's very meaningful. So understanding the change happening in our economical, financial, media environment. So I think the ability to understand this change is what can make a huge difference. Absolutely. And before, thank you again, Luigi. Before giving the stage to Mike, I wanted to invite our folks on YouTube and Facebook very briefly. So in one sentence, let's go to make a kind of interactive brainstorming, design thinking, live design thinking brainstorming. So in one sentence, folks on Facebook and YouTube, in one sentence, please share your answer to the question, what are the lessons we are learning in this particular moment? So one lesson, one main point, one point that can be relevant to foster the discussion. So what are the lessons we are learning in this current scenario? Okay, so feel free to share, possibly brief, so otherwise I cannot technically put your comment on the screen. So if you keep it short, it's better to share your insights. What are the lessons as human beings, as a society, we are learning from the current situation? So what kind of lessons? So feel free to share your answers. Feel free to share your insights to share again what we are learning. And so, Mike, what about you? What you are learning in this moment?
I think one of the interesting things is that people who live in situations which are under pressure, that seem fragile in the context of the time that they're living in, understand very well that things are broken, things don't work, that they can't rely on the things other people can rely on. They understand their situation very well. And the idea that we're learning something, the we, I think, are the folks who don't typically live under the same obvious pressure that people who are in difficult situations live with. And that what we finally see is this thing that Mcluhan talked about, trying to continue these 19th century institutions or these 20th century institutions under the pressure of electronic technology, and that they get pushed to their extreme to the point where they no longer function, and perhaps we shouldn't expect them to. And I think that there's a shock of recognition right now that not only do these situations not work for people who've been under pressure, extraordinary pressure before we arrived at COVID, but they don't work for us any longer either. And I think the scary part of this is that we don't know what to do about it in particular. We fall back on our human instincts, the sort of the ability to collaborate, to cooperate, the social networks that we've established with one another. We go back to our neighbors, we go back to our families, and we go back to these things that help orient us and make sense of these things that provide stability for us. But I think there are a variety of causes for the instability, but I think the fact that we're not really able to cope with them and orient ourselves and figure them out speaks to the fact that I spoke about this a little bit at the Media Ecology convention on Saturday, that our education is really orienting us to exist and survive and thrive within an existing society. And because our education is still rooted in a lot of these older practices in literacy and so forth, they help us function within a society built by print. But what we need right now, and Luigi is really doing wonderful work, is the ability to see our society, see our community, see our human experience as a collaboration, to see solidarity as a process rather than as something that exists prior, to our full adult engagement. There's this idea that maybe when I grow up, you plug yourself into an economy and you plug yourself into a democracy and you plug yourself into a work environment and these kind of things, and you just be that thing you've been preparing to be. And I think we know that that's a false idea. The idea is that our education needs to help us make things, to manipulate things, to organize things, to collaborate with others on things, and to build, to grow. That is a radically different way of looking at schooling. It's a radically different way to look at lessons, or curricula, or assessment, and all these kind of things that we talk about in educational circles. And I think it gets back to, what Dewey talked about 100 years ago, and some of the things he was talking about that have been adopted within a fairly fixed structure. The progressive education movement is adopted in a very fixed, the expansion of the one-room schoolhouse into a many-classroomed school. And we need to, I think, rethink these things. I mean, City as Classroom's a perfect example of something that we were primed to think about in 1977 in order to deal with these problems that we have in 2020. And of course, we look back and say, how did Mcluhan know all that? It's because, he had the ability to perceive change and perceive environments, and hopefully that's what we can do. It's certainly what I'm interested in doing as a media ecologist and as a avid fan of Marshall McLuhan's work. So I think that's what I've learned. I've seen the disintegration of things that were disintegrating long ago, and the fact that people are just shocked into recognition of it now, like, wow, we can't depend on this anymore, and I don't know what to do.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing. And again, so to retrieve the legacy of John Dewey and Marshall McLuhan's City as Classroom, we are learning by experiencing, right? So we are experiencing, we are rediscovering the value of experiential learning, right? In this current always changing situation. So experience matters as a way, even as a way to learn how to learn, right? To adapt to this situation, how to learn adapting to change, right? Which is happening and so on. So great, thank you, Mike. Thank you very really. And before a final merry-go-round, let me share what is coming from our folks on YouTube and Facebook, Marshall Mcluhan's group. What are the lessons we are learning from this current scenario? So Susan is learning gratitude. So we are learning to be grateful. Great. Adaptation. We came up tonight with this very kind of idea of adapting to change. And Jean, we need to live more for our lives online rather than less. So to some extent, rediscovering how to cooperate and collaborate online. And Elaine, that we need other people, even if only virtually. So yeah, I agree. So we need other people. We need to foster empathy and cooperation with other people. And Daniel is retrieving the Mcluhan's quote, "There are no passengers on the spaceship Earth," which is a Becky Fuller inside. Told the crew, we need to take care of our planet and each other. So learning how to better take care of each other. Great. And Andrew, we are learning how important physicality is, right? When you miss something, when you take out something, we learn how important is that. So we are rediscovering how important is the physicality. And yes, we miss a lot. And what else? Alex, talking about education. Online education is not at all second rate. In some circumstances, we cannot do without it. And so this is one of those circumstances. Nai, Mahan, we are learning that we are out of control. Maybe we can dig deeper into this out of control. Jean-Francois, the lesson is to lessen productivity, economy, growth, extraction, consuming, and etc. Tom, Giancarelli, while we are busy going about our business and making plans, the universe steps in and says, hello there. And we were not prepared to that fundamental question. So thank you, Tom. Let me move on. Very inspiring conversation. So let me move on. Masood, I learn how life living with others is beautiful. And then Bernadette, yes, why are we doing this reading? And that's a complicated question from, I think that was from another conversation. Sorry, because there are two parallel conversations happening during the Modern Night webinars, because there is a chat on Facebook, on YouTube. So thank you, Bernadette. And Penny, as I heard this morning in another webinar, we are not earning a living, but learning a living. So that's a nice way to frame it. And then we are learning, Alfonso, that the medium of adaptivity requires retrieving ingenuity. That we should dig deeper into this. And all right, I think that's all. All right, 9:53. I think it's time for a final merry-go-round. As usual, we do conclude with a final merry-go-round. So you, my friends and folks, in particular my invited special guests for tonight, so now it's time for your final merry-go-round. Before giving you the word, I wanted to. All right, so no, let's move on with the final merry-go-round. Then I will do a couple of announcements. And who wants to start? Final remarks, final merry-go-round. What? Okay, Julia. Go ahead.
There were two things that were standing out to me in the conversations today. One relates to the exchange that Mike and Corey had earlier about Zoom and identity on Zoom and who are we on Zoom and not Zoom. And I was just reminded that yes, it's abrasive when it comes to our identity on Zoom. So while our identity is lessened, it becomes actually easier to identify others. So I just joined a new job, a college last year, and I was struggling, getting to know everybody's names, and students too. You try to learn the names quickly, and with Zoom and Google Meet, where everybody has their little name on it, and even with the convention the last 4 days, I felt like I was able to identify way more people and thus connect and communicate with way more people simply because their names were displayed on Zoom. So that was an interesting observation that your conversation provoked. And the other one is, so the spaceship Earth metaphor keeps coming up, and it's so powerful, but maybe we need a stronger metaphor to bring about change. And I've been starting to think about the planet as our body. We're all part of this body, and right now we're trying to fend off this virus and to protect it, but we need to do more than just protect. We need to preserve. How have we been treating our body? We need to do better.
Yeah, amazing. I like the idea of replacing the technical metaphor of the Earthship with the biological, organic metaphor of the body, right? The idea of a living entity we are part of. So, thank you, Julia. Final remarks from Corey.
I would like to just follow up on Julia's comments. Again, I really appreciate what she said. And I would say, I've had the chance, as I guess many people have, to really get back into books it's the time would sort of meditative time to study, but Harari's book Sapiens, can't say enough good stuff about that. I think it should be of relevance to all media ecologists. And as far as getting back to this notion of trying to understand ourselves as places and moments of the earth, I am very excited. My most recent book, it's called How Non-Being Haunts Being. It's probably going to be out this year yet. But the book that I would say was very inspirational to me in all this thinking, if you haven't seen it, you really got to read it. This is so relevant to all media ecologists. And I even contacted Andrew Mcluhan and said, is there any evidence that this is in Marshall's library? And he said he didn't see it. But this is a book called The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth. It has an introduction by C.S. Lewis, by D.E. Harding. And this was written in 1952. It's amazing. He uses the concept of extension. He uses the concept of auto amputation. And he really lays out in a most beautiful way how we technologically have incorporated the earth to be who we are. And we can't separate our experience of ourselves from all of the different technological innovations that have made possible, like even things like this, or something as simple as, writing down our thoughts on a piece of paper. So I would, again, thank you very much for this time here. And I appreciate what Julia just had to say there. So it's exciting times in some way.
Oh, thank you, Corey. I agree. It's exciting time, and that's why we need opportunities to gather, share, and make sense of these to navigate this kind of times. So, Luigi, Mike, who wants to? Mike, go ahead.
So I think a lot about how we've become more hyper aware of the important relationships that we have and that we miss. And I also see how the world seems like sometimes it's on fire around us and that we're struggling to try and solve the problems. There's a few different tensions going on. And I think the most important thing for us to try and take away is how we can navigate and then build based on joy, and try and find a joyful way to express even our most vexing frustrations, so that we can find a path to solve them together and build something better out of the troubles that we have. And you know, a lot of our media environments latch onto those really intense but maybe easier emotions of rage and outrage and so forth, which is really useful. But I think it's harder to find that center of joy to go out and tackle the problems together and remember that we're going to be our own solutions to these things. So that's what I think about.
Terrific. Thank you, Mike. And Luigi, your final remarks. Final.
So for me, I think the most beautiful part of this pandemic was recovering time. Being able, like, it got me healthier because I started to be able to work out because I wasn't moving around to get to places so much. And that recovery of time is very precious. And, you know, what I am thinking about more and more is, like, what do we want to keep and what do we want to change? Like, I really love the city without all the cars. But then, like, I drove my car for the first time in 4 months, and, like, the air conditioner was broken. And when you don't drive a car for 4 months, it actually breaks down. And it started me thinking about all the things that are actually breaking down, that are part of the society and culture that we're a part of. And I do believe that, like, the world of the car is breaking down, metaphorically, if not literally. But I think that's actually important because I think we need to make much more conscious choices. You know, do we want to see our streets filled with cars, or would we rather see them filled with more active transportation? And do we want to have more time in our life for the things that bring us joy? You know, in my case, it's you know, reading poetry, it's drawing, it's doing things that I'm never able to do because in a way we were locked in a lifestyle. So I'm hoping that that, you know, both individually and as a society, we can change things to be more like we would want them to be after this experience of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. Thank you, Luigi. I'm spending a lot of time with my kids, for instance, right? I'm very grateful of that. So you made me think about how important it is to really have time, meaningful time to spend for what we really love, what we really deserve. So thank you. And before saying bye and good night, I wanted to, first of all, we will keep discussing about this matters, what matters to us and the Global Village next Monday night webinar, June the 29th, with Mark Belanger, Elaine Khan, Junichi Miyazawa. And wanted to remind about the Global Village Day. So there will be a 12 hours marathon on the post-pandemic world from noon to midnight, July the 20th, the Global Village Day. So keep an eye and save the date. So we will celebrate globally all across the world for 12 hours the legacy of the Marshall McLuhan's prescient insights to make sense of the current situation. So I wanted to thank again my wonderful friends and guests for tonight, Monday night webinar, Corey Anton, Julia von Hildebrand, Luigi Ferrara, Mike Plugh. I learned how to pronounce finally, hopefully. Thank you. Round of applause for virtual round of applause for you all. We can even touch with each other. So put your hand on the camera and say hi. And so it's nice to keep in touch. Thank you all, folks, on Facebook, Marshall McLuhan's group, on the McLuhan Institute YouTube channel. Thanks to the generosity of Andrew McLuhan, always inspiring and sharing great thoughts. Thank you all. It's all for tonight.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
so much.
That was fun.
Have a
Bye,
good
bye, bye. Buonanotte and stay safe and stay sage.
All right. Take care.
Buonanotte.